It's 4:44 p.m. on June 2nd, 2018, and 17-year-old Tavis Spencer Aitkens is captured on surveillance camera footage outside of the Pick n Pay convenience store in Ipswich, England. Tavis is seen greeting others from the local area while he briefly stays at the shop. He's also spotted helping an employee out. But he isn't staying for long, rather making his way past the shop in order to reach his father's home for something to eat. That sits just up the road on Packard Avenue. Although Tavis's parents had split, he still had a good relationship with them. His mother originally had full custody, but after going off the rails, as many teenage boys do, Tavis's mother sent him to live with his father in the hopes that a strong male figure would put him on the right path. At 4:48 p.m, just 4 minutes after he was initially captured on CCTV, Tavis Spencer Aitkens would make that walk to his father's home. But unbeknownst to him, a group of men thirsty for blood were heading his way in a courier van and on 2 bicycles. When Tavis made it to this rough area on Packard Avenue, he was subjected to a vicious attack, one that would leave him for dead. But why? 85 miles northeast of London, England, sits Ipswich, a large town home to roughly 135,000 people. Just like any other town across the country, Ipswich has much to do if you're to visit for a day or two. Stay any longer and you may find yourself relatively bored. Whether it be a drink down the pub, a visit to the theatre, or taking a walk through one of Ipswich's beautiful parks, there's pretty much something for everyone of every age to do when they visit. But ladies and gentlemen, the town does have a much darker side to it. One that consists of a criminal underworld led by 2 gangs that have a fierce ongoing rivalry, which remains somewhat true until this very day. The ongoing dispute has resulted in shootings, stabbings, robberies, houses set on fire, and murder, among other serious acts of violence. So, who are these gangs then, and why are they at the centre of this story? Well, over on the west side of Ipswich lies Jubilee Park, the home of J Block, a drugs gang that operates out of the IP1 postcode, mainly the Chantry, Witton, Westbourne and Castle Hill areas, although it's said that their territory goes beyond that. J Block would be the more established gang out of the two. Then on the east side lies Queensway, the home of Neno, a drugs gang that operates out of the IP3 postcode, mainly the Ravenswood, Priory Heath and Gainsborough areas, although again their territory is considered to go beyond that. It isn't entirely clear why J Block and Neno started to beef each other, for the lack of a better phrase, but a report suggests that it could have either A, been over people not paying drug debts, in other words, stealing the drugs, or B, younger gang members from both sides getting into minor disputes over girls, and over time these disputes would turn violent. Whatever the case, and for all we know it could just be a territory dispute, ultimately we'll never truly know how this violent back and forth ever emerged. It's hard to say if any major incidents took place because of this dispute prior to 2017. From my research, there isn't any reports to suggest so. That isn't to say nothing happened, but rather it seems as if nothing was reported in the news. However then, in 2017, that was all due to change.
Hey, move. Wait.
What's he doing? Trying to come both ways. Right now? What, right now? No, they're in Jubilee. 2 ways for this situation. Pow. Yeah? Gang, J Block, on my strip, innit? Right here, right.
Towards the end of 2016, J Block members had created a trap/drill rap group called YTB YTN. The group featured a few members from J Block, but only 3 are relevant to this story. Youngs, aka Kyrese Davis, Gio, aka Aristote Yenge, and Flex, aka Isaac Calver. We are a collective of friends from Ipswich, J Block. We started doing music in 2010 just for fun and realised last year in 2016 that people were feeling and supporting us, so we made YTB YTN. In their songs, they rap about what life is like in J Block, whether that be dealing drugs, taking drugs themselves, or as they put it, scoring points on Neno, among other topics. Scoring a point, for those of you who aren't aware, is what some gang members use as a way of tallying up points from incidents that have occurred with rivals. Legacy Media states that gang members claim X amount of points for a headshot or chest shot, for example. But in reality, a point comes from an incident where you've came out on top. And that could be knocking somebody out. It doesn't have to result in a stabbing, shooting, or death. So what incidents had happened between 2017 through to June of 2018? Well, we can't say for certain, but we do know that fights broke out, resulting in people being injured, but no one ever died as the result. In March of 2017, as a part of this ongoing wave of violence, fueled by provocative rap music videos posted on YouTube, J-Block members would come across an aspiring rapper from the Neno area of Ipswich and confronted him on camera. The J-Block members forced him to say, "Fuck Nacton, fuck Neno, and fuck the three," before beating him and slashing him with a knife. The incident was posted to social media as a part of a public humiliation against Neno. In other words, it was another point scored for J-Block. According to a report, the violence only escalated further as the result of this incident taking place, and both gangs would go into each other's territory looking for each other. As you can see here, just a month after that incident took place, J-Block member Youngs was posted up in a chicken shop in Neno territory. Over the course of that period, the start of 2017 through to June of 2018, several confrontations involving older members of both sides took place, which included a firearm being discharged in a hostel, someone's house getting firebombed, shots being fired into a gang rival's home, and both groups getting into knife fights. Although many violent incidents had taken place, no one had died as the result of the tit-for-tat attacks, but that was all due to change in June of 2018. It's 2 PM on June 2nd, 2018, and Suffolk Police Sergeant Murray Osman is on plainclothes duty in Ipswich Town. It was a fairly normal Saturday for Sergeant Osman, a busy summer's day, until he received intel from colleagues that 2 established Neno gang members were in the town centre. I was concerned because members of Neno tended to stay in the Nacton area of town. The town centre is considered J-Block territory, so I immediately went to Tavern Street and stood outside McDonald's to look out for them. While standing outside McDonald's, I saw Kyrese Davis and Aristote Yenge, who I recognise as members of J-Block. Shortly after seeing them, I heard shouting coming from the nearby Lush store, and when I ran into the shop, I saw both Kyrese and Aristote near the back of the store, whilst the 2 members of Neno who were in the area were in the middle of the shop. There were customers and staff inside, mostly families with children. They were scared. I feared the incident may have escalated into significant violence, and so I shouted to take it outside. I frog-marched the 2 Neno members out of the shop and searched them with a colleague. Believe it or not, the Neno members didn't have weapons or drugs on them, so maybe they were just in town shopping and happened to cross paths with J-Block members. Ultimately though, it would be Neno who took the moral victory from the incident. After all, police saved J-Block members from a potential attack. Both Kyrese and Aristote would say that they had fled the scene because they were in possession of drugs, but even if that was the case, they couldn't let this one slide, and so a plan was put together to seek out revenge. Over the next 2 hours, J-Block members Kyrese Davis, Aristote Yenge, Isaac Calver, Callum Platt, an affiliate Adebayo Amusa, originally from London but was living in Ipswich as part of a county line, gathered to plot a gang ride-out in Neno territory. They were thirsty for blood. They needed to go and hunt down a Neno member as revenge for the Lush incident. From what we know of the gathering, it's believed that after leaving the cosmetics store, both Kyrese and Aristote met up with the others around that Alderman Park area. When all 5 were present, Adebayo contacted a man by the name of Leon Glasgow, one of his customers, and asked him if he wanted to take the group to the Nacton area and back in return for some drugs. He agreed, and so he picked them up in a DPD courier van that he had borrowed from one of his friends. Once arriving at Alderman Park, it's thought that everyone spoke briefly, then all but Callum entered the vehicle. He and another person, who until this day hasn't been identified, followed on bicycles. Before heading over to Nacton, the group travelled to Iris Close. That sits within J-Block's territory. It isn't exactly clear why they made this trip, but one theory suggests that they went to collect weapons for the potential revenge attack that was about to take place. After this brief trip to Iris Close, it was time to head over to the heart of Neno territory, Queen's Way. It's roughly 4:48 PM on the 2nd of June 2018, and 17-year-old Tavis Spencer Aitkens is heading to his father's home for something to eat. He's captured on surveillance camera footage passing by the local shops on Queen's Way. Moments later, J-Block members are picked up on CCTV heading in his direction. As Tavis makes it to his father's street, Packard Avenue, they spot him. There he is. There he is. All but Leon decamp from the vehicle and begin to chase Tavis towards his father's home. However, he trips and falls just meters away. With Tavis now on the floor, the J-Block members were able to catch up to him, and he was subjected to a vicious attack. He was stabbed 15 times. The most serious knife blow consisted of a 14cm deep wound to the heart. After the initial knife attack, Adebayo would run up to Tavis and smash him over the head with a glass bottle. The brutal assault was over in just seconds. J-Block would flee. Given the fact that the attack had just happened in broad daylight on a residential street, it's to no surprise that many of the local residents had witnessed the incident. One of those, none other than Tavis's own stepsister. When she saw him bleeding out on the front, she notified her mum, Tavis's stepmother, and they both ran to his aid. It was J-Block, man. There was too many of them. As Tavis lay bleeding out on the streets of Ipswich, he let it be known that it was J-Block who were responsible for this attack. That's Tavis Aitkens. He's in a music video with Neno gang members. The artist makes direct disses to J-Block. It was never clear how deeply involved Tavis was with Neno, but we do know that he was at least somewhat associated. I mean, he's in a music video with known gang members after all. Some say that Tavis was simply affiliated because he went to the same school as Neno gang members, and he lived in the same area as them. Whether he was in the gang or not didn't really matter though, because J-Block clearly knew who he was, which is why he was targeted on the 2nd of June, 2018. His mother said it was the video itself that put him in the crosshairs of J-Block. Emergency services would descend on Packard Avenue just moments after Tavis was stabbed, and right there on the pavement, doctors got to work to stem the bleeding. It was touch and go for a while, but in the end, Tavis had fought through it. He was in a stable condition. However, after arriving at the hospital, he would sadly go on to lose his life. Tavis had been murdered right on his own front doorstep for potentially appearing in a YouTube video. A police investigation into the incident was opened. Many would come forward to police to give witness statements, with the key piece of information being that the group arrived in a DPD delivery van. Upon discovery of this information, detectives would begin a CCTV inquiry, and within 3 hours, the van's movements before and after the murder were traced. It took police just 1 day to connect at least 4 people to the murder due to the mountain of evidence that they had. The following day, they were tracked down and arrested. Then, 2 days later, a further suspect was arrested after being connected, with the final suspect being arrested around 6 weeks after Tavis's murder. Aristote Yenge, Kyrese Davis, Adebayo Amusa, Isaac Calver, Callum Platt, and Leon Glasgow would all be charged in connection with the murder of Tavis Aitkens and would go on trial towards the end of 2018, a trial that would last roughly 14 weeks. Throughout the trial, all but Leon would give a similar version of events. The main point they tried to get across to the jury was that yes, they did admit to being drug dealers to the point where it almost came across as boastful, and yes, they were present in the DPD van earlier on in the day, on June 2nd, but they weren't there at the time of the murder. They had to agree with being in the van due to their DNA being present. There was no denying it. One of the strongest cases for the prosecution was against Aristote Yenge, Gio. You see, police were able to spot him in the van on CCTV at around the time of the murder because of his distinctive jumper. As you know, prior to the murder, both Aristote and Kyrese had been confronted by 2 Neno gang members in Ipswich Town. When police took a look at the CCTV footage from that earlier incident, they noticed that Aristote had a distinctive black jumper on. When they cross-referenced the jumper with CCTV from the van at the time of the murder, they noticed that the jumper was present, and it was worn by someone matching Aristote's description. Aristote's response? Well, he claimed that he had been in the van earlier on that day, but had taken his jumper off because Leon had decided to smoke crack cocaine at some point during the journey. As I was sorting out cannabis for the next deal, Leon took out a crack pipe and started smoking. I don't like the smell, so I took off my jumper and put it around my face. After dropping the drugs off, I left the van and headed back to Alderman Park on foot, where I met Isaac. It was then I realised I left my jumper in the van, but I didn't bother collecting it. Aristote would say that a man only known as M had been responsible for the murder, and it was M who was captured in the CCTV footage at the time of the murder. I didn't kill Tavis, I'm innocent. I'm here because of a jumper. I didn't kill nobody. My child's mother hasn't spoken to me for the past 8 months because she thinks I killed Tavis, but I didn't kill him. You've got me sitting in jail for a jumper. That's my jumper, but I forgot it in the van. I've been called a snitch in jail, and I'm in fear for my life, ever since I've let it be known that M was the one who committed the murder. Although the 5 J-Block members would try and say they weren't present at the time of the murder, the evidence suggested differently, and with Leon giving an account of what actually went down, the boys were left with a weak defense. I got a call from Adebayo and was asked to give him and his boys a lift to Nacton and back in return for drugs and cash. I assumed I was driving them to go and collect money. Yeah, maybe I thought they'd rough someone up, but I didn't expect it to go as far as killing someone. No one seemed worried. No one said they didn't want to be there. No one said it was dreadful. They were proud of what they'd done and were jubilant about it afterwards and appeared to be proud and pleased. After the 14-week trial, Aristote, Kyrese, Adebayo, and Isaac were all found guilty of murder, whilst Callum Platts was found guilty of manslaughter. Leon Glasgow was found not guilty of both murder and manslaughter. In total, the gang were jailed for over 100 years, many of them serving life sentences with the minimum term of 20 plus years. It should be noted though that Kyrese, the youngest out of the group, who was a similar age to Tavis at the time of the murder, had his minimum 21-year term reduced to 16 years at the Court of Appeals for various reasons. His age had played a major role in the reduction. And so, there you have it, the tragic tale of Tavis Spencer Aitkens, the young man who had his whole life ahead of him, but was sadly brutally murdered outside of his own father's home for simply appearing in a YouTube video.
And Kevin is here. I was struck, tears today. Very different reaction yesterday from some of the people.
Yes, in fact, some of it has been very muted, very little reaction. Yesterday, for instance, 2 people chose not to turn up on the day they were convicted. Today, from Calver, a real show of emotion. I'm not a mind reader, Stuart, but it seemed to me that perhaps finally he realised the full consequences of what he'd done. But yeah, absolute tears. I think he just realised this was it, no going back. This is what it all means.
And you spoke to Tavis's father.
That's right, Neville, yes, who's been in court so much of the time. He's been very courteous talking to us, and today as we came out of court, he said to me, yes, you know, the verdicts are all in, but of course for us, for the family, this goes on for the rest of our lives.
Kevin, thank you very much. So let's have a look now at Tavis Spencer Aitkens himself. Who was he? What was he like growing up? Mike Liggins has been to meet 2 people who knew him very well.
Murray Park in Ipswich, close to where Tavis Spencer Aitkens lived and died. Tavis used to come here to play football. His name is now on one of the trees.
Just the way he played, he almost a lazy kind of player until the ball came to him, and then he just suddenly came alive.
Terry Charles knew Tavis when he played for Copplestonians Youth. In one season, 12-year-old Tavis scored a record-breaking 43 goals.
Yeah, he was a talented footballer. Had a great first touch, got the ball out of his feet and went for goal. 43 goals in a season, you know. The record still stands, you know, for Tavis, you know, and I think it will for a long, long time.
When his parents split up, Tavis went to live with his father. Ozzie Thompson, a cousin of Tavis, remembers alarm bells ringing when he saw the young lad, now 13 or 14, out at night.
I just said, Tavis, why are you out on the street so late, my friend? I said, come on, get home, all right? Get home to your dad, all right? If you're out on the streets, you're only going to get yourself in trouble, mate.
Tavis was tall, well over 6 foot, size 14 shoes. His nickname was Biggs. He went here to Ipswich Academy, but was expelled. Terry Charles next saw Tavis, now 15, at a pupil referral unit. How did Tavis become associated with a gang? Terry doesn't know, but he does know others would have wanted Tavis on their side.
Tavis was a popular young man, so having someone like Tavis in their team, you know, I'm not a fan of the word gang, but having him on their side, I suppose, was good for them.
You had everything to live for, but drugs, that big D, is the most terrible thing going in society now.
Tavis wanted to be a mechanic. he wanted to visit Jamaica for his 18th birthday, a birthday he would never see.